Never know when it's starting. I think we are. Okay, I think we're live. Oh, hello, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to today's discussion on the topic of competence in professional dog training. This is the third in the current series. With me are my fearless colleagues, Academy staffer and owner of Christy Benson Dog Training, Christy Benson, Lisa Skavinsky, owner of Dog Educated in Rochester, New York, and new author, Emily Priestley, owner of Wild at Heart Dog Training in the Greater Victoria, British Columbia area. I'm going to start by apologizing a little bit for the title of this, which is on me and appears to have triggered some people, but it is tough to know what to do. Dog training is an unregulated industry, and on a daily basis, we encounter clients who've done the right thing. They've gone to an ethical force-free practitioner, but they've not had their problems with their dog solved. And sometimes they've been badly treated in the process. In many of these cases, the problems are routine and the clients are willing to participate, evidenced by their perseverance in finding another practitioner to help them, then following instructions, and all is well. And so we're left with no other conclusion than that the first trainer couldn't do it. So what the heck is going on? And here's the real crux I think, for all of us. And it's what we most worry about. The clients who don't go on to another second force-free trainer, but they go to a force-oriented trainer. If they then get any kind of relief from their problem, they become walking advertisements for that force-free stuff doesn't work. So today's topic is not about force trainers. It's about force-free trainers who aren't able to resolve routine cases. So whether and how to talk about this, we have all been under the bus, and so we know what it's like, and we feel a bit stuck. Do we talk about this subject? Do we pretend it's not happening? Our answer is yes, we're going to talk about it. And today it's about the effects of all this on us. So if you're wondering about your own competence, this is not the session for you. This session is for us and others who have suffered from this and have had to apologize for our profession again and again. It's going to be a safe and slightly ranty space. And I think Lisa, right ahead of this, said so well, competence or talking about competence is not a bad word. It shouldn't trigger people. So we're going to talk about what we mean by competent. And we're also going to talk, I think, initially about the burnout burden of this on us.
Yeah, so I'll jump in because when we were talking earlier, I'm not alone in this, but I get emails or messages on like Instagram and Facebook from people who have cases that are not, I think, very easy to redeem. They're not like without hope. And the client is saying, like, I've been to so many trainers. I've spent so much, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I've tried everything. I was with XYZ trainer, nothing worked. They said this, they said that. Usually it's not, always great information. How do I know it's going to work? And I'm at the point where I don't even want to try it. I don't even know. Can you guarantee your work? Can you do this? Can you do that? So these people at the very least have had money taken from them from somebody who is working a case that they should have just referred in the first place. So there's no harm in referring cases. I do it all the time. But the flip side of this, and I think why we do need to talk about it, is that it's not just a money issue. We're talking about dogs who, at the very least, probably are suffering poor welfare, or there's, issues in the home. Worst case scenario, these dogs, and I can tell you this from experience, they do sometimes get surrendered to a shelter and rehomed. And in some cases, they go on to be euthanized because the information given was given from a so-called professional or someone that represented themselves as capable of handling that case. And threw their hands up, the owner, walked away and didn't have the issue resolved. So we're not talking about this just because, it's without importance. We're talking about this because the outcome can be critical. So I know it's a touchy subject, but
you're saying, I mean, so what you're saying, Emily, and this is what I get to, is these clients who come to us, and by the time they come to us, they're hanging by a thread. They've been through one or sometimes multiple trainers, nothing has worked. And so they become, quite rightly, sort of suspicious
Sure. And wouldn't you, right? I mean,
Oh,
sometimes we are talking thousands of dollars,
uh-huh.
and no improvement. And at no point was it referred, or, in some cases too, you can bring in you don't even have to refer, you can bring in trainers to help you on your case, things like that. But at no point did that seem to happen. So these people, rightly so, are, and this does go back to the issue of our industry being unregulated, because those people, they can represent themselves however they want. And often the client does not realize in any of the topics that we're talking about that there's a difference between, where people, if people have an education, or that people don't even have to have an education, or that anyone can just watch, any YouTube channel and go on to call themselves a dog trainer. So of course they're exasperated. Of course they're, how do I know this is going to work? I don't blame them. And I think we have to understand that, like, I certainly wouldn't go into spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to just blindly do it over and over again. So, it's I guess in a nutshell, we can waste people's money, or we can also have really bad outcomes from this scenario. So it is it's worth talking about, however uncomfortable, because we have to start to unpack how to fix that about our industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, it's I'm personally sort of tired. And I do want to say, for the record, and I think, Lisa, you were saying ahead of time, that it's not about the letters after your name, although that can be a clue for clients. It's not about, we don't think that ours is the only program. It's about, there's plenty of trainers out there with varying backgrounds of how they obtained their education. It's about, can you get your job? Can you get the job done? Can you do your job? Can you resolve routine cases without difficulty? Can you navigate the complex cases and resolve a good many of them? Can you refer appropriately? Do you know when to refer? Or do you find yourself floundering all the time? Or worse, you're floundering and you don't even know you're floundering.
I mean, there are people calling themselves behaviorists with zero education whatsoever. I would never call myself a behaviorist. I don't, for me, the legal,
yeah, it's a protected category.
Yeah, you're board certified. You've got a certain level of education. That there's very specific. That's a very specific credential. For some people, people are out there, and if you're a dog owner, and by the way, sometimes people who call their behaviorists fool veterinary clinics. I can tell you that there are vets locally that for years referred to somebody with zero training credentials, with zero valid education in animal behavior, because she called herself, and continues to, a behaviorist. And so the vet thinks, oh, that's a real behaviorist, I'll send it to them. So not everybody's questioning. And if vets aren't,
yeah, veterinarians, because they have mandatory education and licensing requirements. So I think sometimes they naively assume that, well, other professionals must.
Yeah. Well, a veterinary doctor would never call themselves a vet doctor unless they were. So they're probably not aware even that dog training is unregulated. So if somebody says, hey, I'm a behaviorist, they may believe that. And if vets don't believe that, then imagine the number of dog owners who believe that. So we do have people who are misrepresenting themselves. In that case, it was an aversives trainer, but that's not the topic of today. But I know plenty of force-free trainers who call themselves behaviorists. And I think it's really important that
here's the thing. So, we're accused, I saw a couple times, we're accused of being sort of snobby, but because we're asking for competence, when in fact, plenty of the most competent people I know, are not snobby. They're dealing, I think somebody said in the chat early before this, dealing with crippling imposter syndrome and burnout. So it's really a troubling state of affairs.
Yeah.
I hope, go ahead. Sorry, Casey.
I was just going to say, I know I did sort of smile a bit when someone in the comments, it was interesting to see that this brought up a lot of conversation. I thought it was exciting. Like, we're definitely sort of gathering attention about this, and this is an important topic for dogs. And I think if we always go back to for dogs, I think that is really the best place for us to start our conversations from. And force-free trainers who don't have a lot of competence and can't get cases solved, are not doing any favors for dogs. You know, like Emily said, dogs can end up warehoused, they can end up euthanized, they can end up relinquished, right? To say nothing of the experience of their guardians. But when someone sort of called us out and said they don't, academy trainers, or perhaps, and I would sort of include in our sort of group any trainer who is science-based and gentle with clients and getting the job done and sort of keeping an eye out for other people who aren't ticking off all those boxes. We do hear you when you say that about us. Like, it comes up enough. We're not unaware. And it often seems in my sort of experience to be sort of associated with people with academy trainers who say, well, why are you doing that and what are you doing it for? And I personally love it when people ask me that about, I'm like, yes, ask me that, please. I'm tamping myself down to not tell you all the time why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right, so you don't seem
It's
like
interesting and cool to us. We love talking about how dogs learn and how to work with clients. So to me, it's kind of baffles me a bit. If you're asked by another trainer, why did you make those training choices? It's an opportunity for you to talk about dogs, you know? So I don't know. I kind of, and I also thought to myself, yes, I mean, the academy trainers and other trainers of our sort of colleague group are represent all types of people, and some of them are going to be snobby, but I would still pick a snobby, competent trainer who's perhaps maybe unpleasant to their colleagues over someone who is harming dogs by putting themselves out there and not getting the dog done, not getting the job done. You know, so I bring it back to dogs again and say, you know what, let's realistically start at dogs. Is their welfare being impacted? Are their lives being impacted? Are they not? You know, this isn't an imaginary conversation. Dogs are being harmed by this.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, I've said in multiple past lives that we've done on these topics, on different topics that we've done, the bulk of my private training clientele, I'm not their first trainer, sadly. And whether they've been to a force-free trainer that couldn't get the job done, or and it's very frequent, an aversives trainer that made the situation worse, I'm still left at the end of the day with a client list of folks that have been mistreated, whose dogs have been not helped. The undesired behaviors are still happening. So we haven't solved the first thing. This is basically my bread and butter for this business, is helping people who I'm not their first, they're not the first trainer. And I do think it makes sense to say, I refer to all kinds of people, not only academy grads. There's lots of competent trainers with,
Same.
you know, regardless of letters. I have a few locally that I'm very grateful for. Globally, nationally, there's lots of people that I refer to. It's not a snobby thing. It's a people are.
I'm not going to refer to somebody that's not competent.
Yeah, I mean, competence is all about, can you get the job done and can you do it in a client-friendly way that's supportive? That's part of competence. All of that is part of competence. And sure,
We're counselors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I never tire of saying that client blaming is the bedfellow of unskilled trainers. And my overwhelming experience is that clients have radar for this. So whether or not a practitioner has directly said to them, you're doing it wrong, you're not committed enough, they fired them, what have you, even if it's been more subtle, when I get people who've been through one or more trainers already, they're very often sheepish and they're very often saying, you know, I was told this and I know that I this and I know I probably did this wrong and I know and sometimes it's, you know, because people take it on themselves and they just, you know, they're just befuddled by their dog. But also they've read between the lines of the previous trainer, you know, who is sort of unwilling to blame the dog, unwilling to blame themselves. And so it ends up falling to the client. And, you know, and I'm just so sick and tired of, you know, saying to these people, God, I'm so sorry about my profession. You know, this is something which really has a very good prognosis. I think we can solve it, you know, pretty routinely. I'm sorry you were treated that way. That really shouldn't have happened. You know, and then if I talk about this, I'm being a snob or I'm throwing people under the bus or what have you. It's like,
I'm cleaning up the mess here.
yeah.
That's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
Where
I've got to support this client not only, you know, through what they're doing, but I've got to sort of, you know, rebuild them after some other trainer has torn them down.
And then, of
and
course,
then I'm the
you
bad
want
guy.
professional about the other trainer that shouldn't have taken the case in the first place. It's a tough situation. It really is.
Yeah, and these
it's not
people,
some.
like Emily says, sometimes they've been out thousands of dollars.
And I mean, I know we've mentioned it before, but I think, Jean, you've brought this up before, that the friendly fire is almost harder to take than the aversives fire. Like the aversives are clearly not in our camp, but
Yeah.
so when we're dealing with people in our own community of force-free trainers who aren't getting the job done and then who are getting angry at us for trying to be upfront about how important competence is, it is, you know what, I would rather keep more people who are doing good work at their jobs, you know, helping dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean burnout among trainers is what keeps me up at night. I mean, sometimes it's, you know, people are perhaps fragile and not able to keep fighting the fight. But I think, you know, we can also just address the burnout burden, and part of that is you know, the doing this, you know, trying to perform your profession in a war zone, in a philosophical war zone, in an unregulated practice war zone, and where it's, you know, it's triggering to sort of say one needs to be competent. You know, can you imagine if nurses or dentists or dental hygienists or your car mechanic, you know, said what could be incompetent if anybody dared to say, you know, you didn't fix my brakes, you know, that's somehow being unkind, or you're a snob mechanic if you say, you know, you actually need to be able to rotate tires. You know, I mean,
Well,
I
it's a
know.
huge loophole in our industry. Like if we are saying we you know, force-free trainers, regardless of their abilities, can work any case and we're not allowed to hold them accountable, or we're not allowed to question that, that's a massive loophole. Because again, like, and I just saw this on the internet 2 weeks ago. Somebody said that they didn't want to do any of the, you know, sort of major dog training schools because if they failed, they didn't want to be out the money. Can you imagine
Way to go.
if you were
Somebody's gonna go
standing
into
in your
practice.
doctor's office, right? And you were like waiting for your appointment, and there was like nurses chatting in the corner, and you overheard them. And the one nurse said, well, I just kind of DIY'd, you know, my education. I watched some YouTube videos and things like that because I didn't want to be out the money if I failed. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
If that was the case, like your hair, Jean, just to quote Jean, your hair would catch fire. Like
Yeah, is it okay? You know, is it okay to have that attitude?
and really, like nurses, dental hygienists, you know, I guess mechanics, you can find DIY mechanics, but they're certainly not working for like Boeing and things like that, are they? Right. So those people, they don't have to have these conversations because they're covered by the fact that their industry is regulated, right? So, you know, we're in this loophole where, like, you know, you can go to work as a dog trainer, and if I come in as a force-free trainer, then nobody's allowed to kind of shine a spotlight on me, and I can just work fear and aggression cases without any understanding of animal learning and how that takes place. Like, this is not okay.
Yeah, it's not a free pass away from accountability, to say, you know, I'm not using force, therefore, you know, I'm the good guys automatically.
And what could possibly go wrong, right?
Yeah,
Like what could
yeah.
well, a lot can go wrong. Like,
Yeah.
And this is a complex profession. I mean, this is up there with, you know, nursing and dental hygienists, and more counseling. And we've got to understand dog behavior. There's an awful lot of moving parts, and being good to clients. You know, the clients are in good faith, paying money for services, to you know, and they need to be serviced properly.
we're dealing with cases where public health and safety
That
is
too.
a concern. So when that's the case, like we have to make sure that we're capable going into that session, period. Like there's just the fact that we would debate that
Yeah.
is
Yeah, and if we
mind
raise
blowing.
the issue, if we raise the issue that you know stuff gets hurled at us for even raising the issue, like, oh man, that is so
And
disheartening.
it's critical that we are capable of using critical thinking. It's not closed-minded to ensure that, you know, if we're going to be discussing training and behavior in open forums with other trainers, it's not being closed-minded. It's not being a bully. We need to be able to question protocols. We need to be able to question what's going on, not only for the industry at large, but for ourselves. I think
You
it's
can do it politely, you can do it
science, as
kindly,
Lizzie said.
politely, but
Yeah.
do it.
They deserve us to understand what we're doing. And so here's the thing. Owners do not have unlimited money, unlimited time, and unlimited patience. These are things for which there is, you know, a limited pool. And if we're taking all of that away from them and not addressing the undesired behaviors they came to us about in the first place, we are failing. And to fail, folks, when you're calling yourself an expert or a professional is not okay. And if we don't call that out, then people continue to do it. You can't turn a blind eye to incompetence. And it's not an insult when we say the word incompetence. We're not hurling accusations.
It's a description.
One of the people who are worried that you're being called incompetent, then I think that's a good clue to you that perhaps you should look into upgrading.
What are we supposed to call?
Right.
If somebody, and we've got over and over and over, somebody comes and they've got like problem X and it's routine and it's very solvable and it with just basic standard operating procedures, and the trainers I know can do it with one hand tied behind their back, and the client went to a practitioner and paid money and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to call that? Because you know, so what are the alternatives? You know, you could say it's, you know, incompetent or what's the alternative?
And if you are a competent trainer who has studied and worked hard and made sure that you were not taking cases beyond your capability, referring out when you need to, and you're able to get the job done, we're not talking about you. You know, that's the thing.
Right,
You should
you're not the problem.
this discussion, because this also is a labor on you. This also impacts you and reflects on you in an industry like this. So, you know, if you're viewing this conversation, this topic as one that should be avoided, I mean, anybody who has competence should welcome this conversation, because you're all on the same page. We're all struggling with dealing with, you know, clients where we're not the first trainer, where they've been through this. We should all want to rise to the occasion. We should all want to be competent. And if for some reason anybody's fighting against that, who fights against?
Yeah, who fights against competence? Yeah, how do you fight against somebody able to do their job?
And the title of this talk,
that's unkind. It's unkind.
It was just a
it's okay. It's okay if you can. It's okay if you can do routine stuff or not. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
You're not hurting the dog. Yeah. Are you? Yeah.
Mm.
Nobody's going to argue that if you have an incompetent force-free trainer, it's better than having an incompetent pain trainer. Of course, we would all agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it is always helpful to sort of the substitute in, you know, aircraft maintenance person or nurse, you know, or dental hygienist, you know, or you know, to just slot in and right. You know, your child's kindergarten teacher, you know, your child's high school economics teacher, you know, I mean, slot in something like that and say, is it okay if they have no idea what they're doing?
Yeah.
Right. And that's there is licensing for things there. You know, we are stuck in an unregulated industry. So that's why this is probably a little bit more, you know, you're not going to see, you might see somebody who's not the greatest hairdresser, but they're licensed.
Yeah. and it's certainly, I'm suspicious of people who say, I don't want to talk about competence and I don't want regulation in this industry.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder about what's your agenda and what's your competence, but why would you not want that? That to me is suspicious.
It is a bit of a red flag, I will be honest.
I mean, what if someone said, you know, well, I really want to be a plumber
to talk about competence
school, because not everybody can afford to go to plumber school. So that shouldn't preclude me from being a plumber. It's getting an education, or at least seeking an education. It shouldn't be considered, well, I shouldn't have to. The question is, how can we make it available? The question is, how can we make education more readily available for people? It's not whether or not I should have to. That's the thing that kind of concerns me when I hear people talking about that stuff. So.
And I loved actually one of the comments from Kate Knows Dogs. They said it was something along the lines of like, incompetence is an opportunity to be able to learn, or something along those lines. And I love that, because we're not saying, like, I haven't always been as competent as I am today, and I hope to be more competent in the future. So it's not like I wasn't at fault before, in the sense that like there wasn't a character flaw with me.
Right. Yeah.
I just wasn't ready to take complex cases, or to work cases where there could be an outcome that would be, detrimental. And so it's not there is always, trust me, I used to be like so insecure about handling dogs. Like, if I look back on some of the things that used to give me like stage fright about handling dogs, like now I'm like, wow, I like it. There's room to it. It's not a permanent situation.
Yeah.
You can grow and you can learn. So it's just a matter of right now, what should that person be doing? Back then, 15 years ago, I certainly should not have been working complex cases, and that's okay. I probably shouldn't have been working with puppies either.
Jen said something
there's
similar
case types that scare the bejesus out of me, and I gratefully refer them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm always so
I
grateful
refer, yeah.
for competent trainers who like those case types that I prefer. And it's not even necessarily a matter of competence. There's plenty of cases I could take and competently address, just with the knowledge and the standard procedures. It's just there are cases I'd prefer not to. And so I'm so grateful that I have colleagues that are competent who welcome those cases. Not all of us are going to be a jack of all trades. Some of us are focus on specialties. Some of us are going to have, a pretty wide case assortment that we will take, but it's okay to have case types you don't prefer, as long as you do have competent people to refer on to, which I do frequently. Again, sometimes, well outside of the academy. It's just competency. I'm looking for people who are going to be supportive of the clients and get the job done.
Right.
I think referring is like a sign of competence, actually, like knowing the boundaries of your own preference and knowledge.
Because I want to stay in the game too, as long as I can. So I don't want to take a bunch of cases that cause me stress or sleepless nights. I will, believe me, I do take those. But if I know right out of the gate, this is not a case type that I enjoy, that it does cause me a specific amount of, I don't typically love children and dogs, for instance.
Same.
I love children, I love dogs. I don't necessarily enjoy those cases because I think the stakes are pretty high and I'll worry a lot. But I have colleagues who happily take those cases. They enjoy those cases, and I will hand each one over with a keeping of appreciation. So yeah, knowing what you're capable of. And again, I'm capable of taking those cases. I prefer not to. And I think it shows me being confident that I'm trying to stay in the game. I want to make sure I have some longevity. So
one thing I want to sort of slide in there before we finish is that whenever I hear, and I am like Jean, I want all of my amazing colleagues to stay in this business as long as possible. So it weighs me down when people are experiencing burnout. And I know being the third or fourth trainer is burnout fodder. But that said, I want to make sure that if there happens to be a single dog guardian out there who's listening to this, who's like, well, I was going to reach out to a third or fourth trainer, please do reach out to a competent trainer. This isn't saying don't keep trying, but I just think to myself, God, those people are so persistent. How many dogs, how many people gave up after one, we don't know. Gave up after two, gave up after three, before they even get to us. So I just, like the possibility of so many people who are just like, well, I suck or my dogs suck, because they
never know about.
That we'll never know about. That is,
sad.
Well,
and that's why I think we have to keep talking about this.
Yeah. We have to, because it's an unregulated industry and people are going to be able to say there's something that they may not have the chops to say they are. It's not to say that everybody out there is an imposter. By any stretch of the imagination, there are countless competent trainers who get the job done every day. This isn't about you.
Yeah.
This is about, folks needing to get their competence level, recognizing when maybe you are out of your depth. If you're taking setbacks cases and the way you're addressing it is by shooting kibble under the door for 10 minutes, that's not a case you should be taking. That's a random example. I know someone who did that. But there are things that for which we need to know what we're capable of. We need to know our own competency. And it is something that we need to talk about and keep talking about. So I, for one, appreciate that we have this forum and this opportunity to discuss the things that we are confronted with every single day. And I'm sure there's a great number of people out there that are also grateful.
Yeah, and if you're out there and you're doing it and you're getting it, you are resolving your cases time after time after time. Try and do what you need to do to avoid burnout, because we need you.
As we end we end all of these conversations, really a good number of them talking about burnout, which just tells us
The burnout
just
profession.
big of an issue it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. The same things come up over and over again. Burnout, unregulated industry. Like, I wonder why that is.
And not that there's not incompetent people in regulated industries, but
Yes,
I think
true.
so if you're if someone's going to come back at us like, oh well, my dentist did blah, yeah, okay. But in a numbers game, I think we really have to accept that there's a numbers game in our field,
Yeah.
And Jean, I think you brought this up earlier,
dentist
but
who does, frank, you can sue somebody in a regulated industry. There's an oversight
right.
company
Yeah.
ensuring there's competence and standard, there's standard operations that are being.
I mean, a lot of those professions are required to, and they're advised to, carry massive malpractice insurance, because, there's a cottage industry in suing for malpractice. Dog trainers sued for malpractice because they have no idea what they're doing.
There'd have to be
The case.
practice. Yeah, there'd have to first be a standard of practice and an oversight
There has to be a standard.
and there simply isn't. So yeah, it's higher risk for consumers. It's higher risk for dogs. And it's higher risk for burnout for those of us who work really hard to ensure that we're being ethical and competent.
And it matters. It matters not just because of, we're all in it primarily. I mean, I think we all initially got into it, for dogs, dog welfare. That's our sort of abiding passion. But for anybody who even, for whom that is not fantastically important, we are talking about, sometimes large, predators living in communities, and we're the ones, working as arbiters of the, of their behavior, and so it matters to even the public safety.
Yeah. On so many
levels.
And
I think we also need to accept that if an incompetent force-free trainer doesn't get the job done, and Jean, I know you mentioned this already, but I saw a couple posts like this recently, just in my friend group, where someone, went to a trainer and didn't get the job done, went to an aversives trainer, and then those people are like mouthpieces for aversive training, because a lot of aversive trainers are very capable. They get the job done. We just don't like the tools.
They suppress the behavior,
and they have side effects. But so maybe that there's fear of side effect. But if somebody's got a nuisance behavior that's making them crazy, there are people who either don't recognize that they've now traded that for some fear, or people don't recognize the fear. They don't care. They don't
doesn't matter because
prioritize the fear that their dog is now experiencing. I don't blame those people for being walking advertisements for,
and they are
training.
That is doing our profession. It's not just not doing us any favors, it's doing us harm. Right? Because those people then are like, look, my dog is in place, settled, like force-free training doesn't work. And they're very loud about it. And it is.
And people can wail all they want about, blaming that person for, doing what they did. But I don't see how you can blame that person.
They tried.
The problem isn't that client.
Yeah.
They're navigating an extremely uneven profession.
They don't know. That client doesn't know that it's an unregulated profession. They know they had two different professionals that they paid money to tell them two different things, and they're going to be
One worked and one didn't.
satisfied with the one where the undesired behavior's gone. Doesn't matter why, doesn't matter the side effects. They may not understand those things or see the side effects. People don't necessarily see a shut down, worried dog as shut down and worried. They just see it as quiet and not being a pain in the butt.
Yes.
Especially if the trainer gave them a myth. You know,
Yes,
which they do.
especially if they were given this,
Narrative to hang on to that. Yeah.
and of course they're going to say those things. So, I mean, it's important to all dogs, not just us and our burnout and our individual businesses, and not just us and our discussions among like-minded people. Dogs' lives and the forwarding, the furthering of everybody understanding the science of animal learning, everybody understanding the behavior of dogs, particularly better as we go through. I mean, for me, that's always been the biggest thing. How can I get owners to better understand these animals that they've invited to live in their homes? How do we make sure? To me, it's incredibly sad that people love their dogs. They bring them into their home. They make them part of their families. Sometimes they sleep with them. And you're lucky if you get 10, maybe 12, 13 years with this animal that you love and consider part of your family. How very sad is it that so many of them, when their dog passes, they never really understood that dog they loved so much. They thought every behavior that they were doing was some bid to get
Apology. Yeah.
Yeah, it was always some kind of mercenary, horrible thing. I want people to better understand dogs. And if we're not getting that job done, making sure that people understand what's driving the behavior, not in great depth.
And can
but
live
understand the dog a little better.
successfully with their dogs. Everybody wins, you know?
Yes. And there's going to be a little bit of understanding the why, a lot of understanding the how, a lot of making sure the animal's needs are met. And we have to do that without insulting the owner and supporting them through it. And if we fail at any level of this, and for the love of God, if we can't just get the behavior the dog owner wants, we're failing not just that dog and that owner, we're failing the progression of people understanding these animals that we live with. I think we have a responsibility to leave everybody a little bit more knowledgeable, a little happier, a little safer, you know?
Hallelujah.
Amen.
All right.
Final thoughts, anybody? You just try not to, if you're out there and you've worked hard to be good at your job and you're getting the job done, again, don't burn out. Don't burn out.
Find someone to rent with if you need to rent.
Yeah, and refer. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.